All right, I am here with Dr. Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for coming up on stage and taking the time to speak with us.
Man, it's awesome to be at AmFest, but it's really awesome to be sitting with you, and I mean that.
Wow,
I really do mean that.
Okay, thank you. We're starting off with some flattery. I like that.
You know, being a man of the South, flattery gets me pretty far.
Well, let me return the favor, okay? Because I found myself over the last year or so, and even before that, anytime I'm interested in a subject that's relevant to the right and what's going on, whether it's immigration and the paper that you guys wrote with Jason Richwine, or Roger Severino, I was looking at some research he did about trans violence, for example. Mike Howells has done some great work on Antifa and elsewhere. The Heritage name is coming up everywhere. You guys are doing an amazing job. And I really think kind of setting the foundation for the sort of knowledge base on the right. And this is the sort of script we have to sort of make decisions about where we're going to go with policy and the sort of narrative for what's happened in this country. So is that a sort of deliberate project that you guys are embarking on?
It is, and thanks for summarizing it so well. In fact, I might struggle to summarize it any better than that. But what I'll add to that, Jonathan, is we start with our ideas and our policies. I have the best colleagues in the world. They're very smart in generally, but in each of their areas of expertise. But I think what distinguishes us at Heritage from most think tanks, a phrase we try not to use because it sounds so passive. No disrespect to think tanks, but for us at Heritage, it hasn't really been true for a long time that that's all we do, because for decades, since we were founded in the 70s, we've also advocated for those ideas.
Okay.
And so there are always policy recommendations that not only we're making to Congress and now increasingly state legislatures, but that we go spend material resources. We hire people, our own internal people, to go fight for those policies. And then the third and final component of this is we get upstream of both of those things. Actually the policy formulation and also the policy advocacy, and we try to shape public opinion around policy solutions that we think are very important. I'm not aware of another organization that does it that way. It's obviously worked for us.
I think it's working great, but let me sort of ask a pointed question here, because you talk about shaping sort of the opinions on the right and how we understand what's going on in the world, and you guys have done a fantastic job of that. But, you know, let's say I'm an average MAGA voter, and maybe I'm a little frustrated at the lack of action. Okay, we got all the ideas, we seem to agree on where the problems are. We maybe even seem to agree on how we go about fixing those problems, but there seems to be something getting in the way of that understanding of where the problems are and how to fix them, and then actually executing on those solutions. So can you maybe help the average voter, someone who's on the outside, they're not in DC, they don't know how the sausage gets made? Why is there this sort of gap between ideas and action?
I have to start the answer this way, because someone might say, oh, you know, Robert's CEO of a Washington-based group. If they don't know us, they would have natural skepticism, and they should. I'm an everyday guy. I grew up a very poor kid in Louisiana. I don't mean that to like whine, but to say this is the greatest country ever. So I look at that question not as the head of a policy organization based in Washington, but as a regular guy. And the problem is that for 50, 60, 70 years, the left, the center, and some people on the right have centralized all of this power in Washington, not just in the administrative state, which is the most obvious, but it's also just in the way things are done. And so think about, for example, to get to the heart of the response here, 11 months of policy success, mostly driven by Donald Trump. Frustration sometime with Congress. And yes, math is a real thing. The filibuster is a real thing in the Senate, and a 5-seat majority in the House is a real thing. But I share the frustration. We at Heritage share the frustration of the pace of reform not being enough. But this is the sliver of optimism that I will sum up with. We're trying to, we collectively, starting with the president, we're trying to break a half century of habit in Washington. And so what I don't want anyone who hears this plea for patience to hear from me is, you know, tapping on the head, you know, you just be quiet. We at Heritage actually reject that in Washington. And so I just think that we're just beginning to get ahead of steam in some of the reforms that will finally break the back of the deep state. We've got to be in power for a long time to make that happen, because what we're trying to correct is just so pervasive.
All right, well, let's get into some specifics then. You know, Heritage, as I mentioned at the start, you kind of have your fingers in many pies, maybe all the pies actually. But But, it's just a matter of sort of the constraints of political capital, of timing, that you have to have priorities. You have to have a hierarchy of interests. And so I'm curious from your perspective, where should the right now, whether it's Congress, whether it's in the White House, where should we be focusing our political attention? Where should we be focusing our resources? What can we do right now? What's the second order priority, third, et cetera?
Look, you asked a historian a question about chronology, so I have to go in order. The first thing that we have to do is understand that there's something even more important than Washington chronologically right now as we sit here, and that is the upcoming state legislative sessions. Why do I say that? A little bit of policy wonkish there, but what's happening is that we're seeing the revitalization of federalism. Put in sort of everyday terms, we're seeing the transmission of power from Washington back to the states, because the second thing is the Trump-Vance agenda in Washington is about devolving power from Washington to the states. And so chronologically, we've got to be focused on the states. The second thing is Congress has got to come back in January and pass the rest of the president's agenda. They need to conclude not just the confirmations of nominees who will go do the work of this agenda, but then the third thing to wrap up on this, thinking about the midterms, which is also a bit of a longer range response, is we have to talk about the issues the American people care about. It's just so typical that the Washington establishment wants to talk about policies X, Y, and Z, and the American people are saying, to get to your question, we care about the economy, we care about the future of the American family, we're worried about schools still not teaching our kids. You've got to go argue what you're for rather than just what you're against. Yeah,
very good. And now we're at this wonderful conference. We have a lot of... Thank you. We got big fans here.
You got fans here.
Yeah. I know that guy, my super fan. Thank you very much. Very active, very motivated people at this conference. And these are people who want to do something.
That's right.
They want to be not just passengers, they want to be crew, okay? So
that's really well said.
What can we tell the people who are, and people are, okay? You're not just a passenger, you are the crew. What can we tell them, given where we're at, given where we're going? What are some short-term, sort of immediate actions, even if they're small, that people can take to maybe push their state houses in one direction or another? Maybe it's at the federal level. What are some of the things you can tell people who are out there in the audience, what they can do to improve this situation, even if just a little bit?
I'm going to be really practical. And it's going to, for some people, it's going to sound like, oh, there's no way I could do that. Oh, you absolutely can do this, and you should. Let's talk about the state legislatures. Because it's easier for everyone in America, even if you live quite a bit from the state capitol. Find an issue, or start with the issue you're most passionate about. It could be education, it could be spending, it could be something else. It could be Fortune 50 companies buying up single-family homes. Find that issue and become mildly conversant in it. I run the biggest public policy organization in the world. I'm not mildly conversant in every policy issue because I have experts to lean on. So that's a plea to say, you're not too dumb to do this, right? And then the second thing is find some organization. It could be Heritage. I don't mean this in a sales way about Heritage. It could be another organization. And then walk into your state legislator's office. I don't care if you're a Republican and he or she's a Democrat. The presence of people in the public square does change things. And then the next steps are going to become clear. It actually is that simple.
Yeah, that's very good. Okay, so Mr. Roberts, Dr. Roberts.
Kevin is fine.
Kevin's fine. We're on a first name basis now. That's good. You've been at sort of the center of a firestorm, and I'm not interested in relitigating the details of that, but one thing I've noticed here at AmFest and just broadly in conservative world is this kind of lack of understanding of where things are going. Things seem a little unsettled. There seem to be some fault lines that are maybe threatening to sort of crack this very delicate coalition apart. So my question to you is, where do you see some of these tensions? And of course, more importantly, how do we come together, bring people back so that we can all work towards the same positive goals, which really is still, we have to remember, defeating the left, who have not gone away, by the way. So how do we get back to that?
Well, start with that. Number one, let's remember our common political enemy is the left, and so let's stay focused on that. Doesn't mean we can't have family conversations as they were in the conservative movement, but the second thing is, and this is where Heritage and I spend most of our time, it's what we have been really zealously focused on amid this firestorm over the last several weeks, and that is back to my earlier comment about running on what we're for.
Yeah.
You're not hearing that from members of the House or members of the Senate right now. They may come around, but what we're saying at Heritage is go set up a policy platform that's also got a great messaging component on the things that Americans are worried about. What's the future of the American family? What's the future of work in the free market, which has been corrupted by such bad policy? What's the future of national security? To get into one of these questions in our movement right now, what does it mean to be an American?
Yeah.
But then the third thing is, in a much broader sense, just stepping away from the specificity of those policy ideas I just mentioned, we have people who think that there is discontinuity between Reaganism and Trumpism. And our thesis at Heritage is there's a lot more overlap between those. Every new leader of the conservative movement is going to put his or her new imprint on that. But what we see, just to use one example to sum up, as we sit here, we just learned 271,000 fewer employees are working for the federal government today than they were when Trump took office. Is that, clap for that.
Yeah.
Is that not the culmination of Reaganism at its core? That's where Heritage wants to place the emphasis, and then that properly puts in proper perspective the differences of opinion that we're going to have.
Yeah, and a lot of this, to me personally, it seems more stylistic than a policy question.
I think that's fair too.
And, there are these real characterological sort of disagreements with how people want to go about solving the problems, but it does seem to me the silver lining here is that we share the same understanding of what the problems are, and we should be able to find, therefore, solutions to how to fix them, even if we go about it in slightly different ways. So,
style has a lot to do with it, and for us at Heritage, that means our style is ideas, issues, policies. We'll let other people, especially media personalities, work that out as they have the right to do. But our job as America's outpost in Washington, just think about how we're funded by several 100,000 people, makes us independent of Washington. If we stay focused on that, I think the rest of the movement is going to have healthier conversations. Not that we're the end-all be-all. I'm not suggesting that with hubris, but I do think that we have the ability to convene voices around those ideas and issues, and our members of Congress who need our policy prescriptions will follow suit as well.
Dr. Roberts, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor, man. Thank you.
All right.